Good evening, I'm Leanne Sanders. Welcome to APTN National News. The rhetoric is ramping up in the final days of the Manitoba election campaign, and it's focusing in on searching landfills for missing and murdered Indigenous women. The Progressive Conservative Party has taken out full-page ads in the Winnipeg Free Press in recent days, attacking the NDP, while the Conservatives say media coverage has been biased against their candidates. It's almost a given in election campaigns. Things like this ad that appeared in the Winnipeg Free Press and on a website. Or this one showing Conservative leader Heather Stephenson standing firm on not searching landfills for missing and murdered Indigenous women. At an event at Conservative candidate Kevin Klein's Winnipeg campaign office Wednesday, fellow candidate Réjean Caron was present. She's also a member of the Manitoba Métis Federation. APTN asked how her party's stance on the landfill issue sits with her as an Indigenous woman.
I understand the reasons. Obviously, it's gut-wrenching. There's no doubt. I'm a mother, and I'm also, as a police officer, I have worked on Indigenous files with missing and murders. So I have had a first-hand, knowledge of that.
The campaign event was a promise of $10 million to support women fleeing domestic violence, while outside, protesters shouted, "Search the landfill." Before the PC ads were published, Manitoba Liberal leader Dougald Lamont weighed in on the landfill issue during a sit-down with APTN.
But this should never have been a political issue at all. This is just something that should have been part of a police budget. We don't have a referendum like this on whether people have a murder investigation happen or not. So this has been a truly terrible, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen, quite honestly, in politics, that this is being used as a wedge issue in an election year to make people pick and choose when really we should be standing on the side of victims of crime.
APTN Truth and Politics panelist Nigan Sinclair says this style of ad appeals to certain people.
What we're seeing is a wide-scale approach, and desperate times call for desperate measures. What you're seeing is a very desperate Conservative Party who is only appealing to the very base level of voter. And the very base level of the voter is the question, will you vote for an Indigenous leader? Will you vote for women? Will you vote for a party that supports LGBTQ people? That's really what the appeal is in these attack ads.
Meanwhile, the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says human rights violations are prevalent in the PC leader's slogan, "Stand Firm," a reference to her decision not to back a landfill search.
It's been a long, hard journey to try and convince politicians that the lives of our women do matter. The lives of any person matters. And I don't know what much more I can say to do that.
The Liberals have promised to fund at least half the cost of the landfill search, which is pegged at around $184 million, with the NDP committing to funding a search but not giving a number. Manitobans will have the final say when they go to the polls October 3rd. And we'll have a deeper look at the issue coming up a little later in our newscast with the Truth and Politics panel. A man from the Siksika Nation in southern Alberta has filed a human rights complaint against a hospital and Alberta Health Services following the death of his wife. According to the complaint, she was not given proper treatment leading up to her death. Siksika Chief and Council say the incident is a result of systemic racism and are calling for change in Alberta's healthcare system. APTN's Tamara Pimentel has the details.
Her death was preventable.
In a press conference on Thursday, Ben Crowchief relives the experience of losing his wife, Myra Crowchief, in April of 2022. He says her death could have been prevented had she been provided proper care at a hospital in Strathmore, the closest hospital to their home community of Siksika Nation in southern Alberta.
I feel she would still be alive, and her concerns would have been taken seriously.
Ben submitted a complaint to the Alberta Human Rights Commission against Strathmore District Health Services and Alberta Health Services. According to the complaint, the couple had experienced discriminatory treatment on April 17, 2022, when Myra was brought to hospital by ambulance for intense pain in her abdomen. The complaint states Myra remained in the emergency department at Strathmore Hospital for the next 7 hours and was ignored by hospital staff. She kept in touch with Ben while he was at home caring for their children. She told Ben no one was checking in on her or treating her pain, and she was discharged without any prescriptions. A CT scan was done at the hospital in Strathmore. It showed evidence of active abdominal bleeding. But no one told the couple until Myra went to Foothills Hospital in Calgary.
I wish no one else had to go through what we went through.
She was admitted on April 20th, 2022, and died the following day.
She doesn't get to see her kids grow up, or her grandkids. She should have been treated differently.
In March 2022, Siksika Chief and Council began collecting stories of discrimination in healthcare from its members. Chief Ore Crowfoot says a steady flow of complaints have been made, and the Crow Chief's experience is just one of many stories being brought to light.
For too long, we have been subject to racist and discriminatory behavior while receiving health care. For too long, we have been insulted when we were at our most vulnerable.
APTN has reached out to Alberta Health Services for a comment. We did not hear back before airtime. Ben says he wants to see change within Alberta's healthcare system to prevent similar stories from happening in the future. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
We want to hear what you think about any of the stories you've heard tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And you can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X, previously known as Twitter. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. A lawsuit filed by Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations officials in Saskatchewan last month against former Chief Electoral Officer Myrna Osubushi has revealed that current FSIN Chief Bobby Cameron may not have been eligible to run in the 2021 FSIN election. In her statement of defense, Osubushi says she's learned of Cameron's criminal conviction and brought it up before the 2021 election. She was then let go from her role as electoral officer. APTN has confirmed that Cameron was convicted of theft in a break-and-enter in 1993. He was first elected FSIN chief in 2015. Section 44B of the FSIN Election Act says, in part, a person shall be ineligible as a candidate for an executive position if he or she has been convicted of fraud, theft, or a breach of trust. There's no time limit on that section of the Act. Chief Cameron could not be reached for comment today. A series of cultural sites belonging to a First Nation in the Yukon are now part of the prestigious UNESCO World Heritage List. The Klondike World Heritage Site is a series of properties made up of 8 distinct locations covering more than 300 hectares. The Trondek-Gwich'in First Nation says the area is unique because of its First Nation and settler history. UNESCO, or the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, recognizes places on Earth that offer outstanding universal value to humanity. A World Heritage designation is eligible to receive funding for protection and conservation because of its special status.
Trondek-Klondike will help protect our lands and tell our stories. Trondek-Klondike World Heritage Site provides Trondek-Gwich'in and the rest of our community with another opportunity to connect with our lands and act as stewards to share the lessons of these lands and speak for the animals.
A Senate committee is examining new legislation this week that aims to tighten Canada's bail system. The government says the old bail system contained gaps which allowed offenders charged with serious crimes to exploit it. But critics say the new legislation will only increase the mass over-incarceration of Indigenous people in Canadian jails. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Around the table to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Testifying before the Senate Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs earlier this week, Justice Minister Araf Virani assured members the legislation will not increase the number of Indigenous people behind bars.
We've taken great lengths as a government to ensure that the overrepresentation piece is being addressed for Indigenous as well as Black individuals in Canada who are overrepresented greatly. And I can point you to many examples, but I'll just point you to a couple right now. One is Bill C-5, which dealt with mandatory minimum penalties and the fact that those were resulting in the over-incarceration of Black and Indigenous persons. I'm currently working on an Indigenous justice strategy with Indigenous leaders.
Bill C-48 expands the number of charges where an accused must demonstrate they are not a threat to public safety when seeking bail. These include a variety of firearms offenses, violent offenses involving a weapon, and intimate partner violence. On Thursday, Krista Big Canoe of the Indigenous Bar Association told the same committee that changes will lead to an increased number of Indigenous women pleading guilty to charges they may have previously contested.
There is potential harm, particularly to Indigenous women, as it relates to prior charges of intimate partner violence, knowing that Indigenous women and Indigenous individuals will often plead out, even when they're not guilty, because the consequences are less serious than when they are convicted in a trial.
She also said the reforms will ensure fewer Indigenous women are granted bail.
Dual charging often results in women who find themselves either in poverty or in circumstances potentially of more serious domestic violence facing the criminal justice system in a way that the reverse onus will be very difficult for them. We already know that Indigenous people do not receive bail at the same rate as others.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear from our Truth and Politics panel. Back after this. Welcome back. As we heard earlier in our newscast, the provincial election campaign in Manitoba is into its final days. Voters go to the polls Tuesday, October 3rd, and the Conservatives have launched a series of attack ads aimed at the NDP, especially their leader, Wab Kinew. Winnipeg Free Press columnist Negan Sinclair and Eagle Feather News editor-in-chief Carrie Benjo are here now for this week's Truth and Politics panel. Okay, Negan, you've been quoted, the progressive Conservatives are desperate. Could you expand on that?
Well, the past few days here in Manitoba have been very clear that the Conservative strategy is not to build the house, but to save what's in it. And what that means is they've got a block vote of 30%-ish that they're trying to appeal to shore up, to make sure that they maintain themselves in between 17 and 20 seats. And it's a Hail Mary pass to hope that there's enough people in Manitoba who think Wab Kinew is a criminal, can never be forgiven, and that Indigenous peoples aren't to be trusted in making decisions on their own remains and landfills and so on like that. And so what's happening is that the Conservatives are no longer looking for that kind of center moderate vote. They're looking for a hard vote and those who are feeling anti-reconciliation.
Okay, Carrie, the PCs are saying that the Manitoba New Democrats will open the floodgates for crime. Will this convince enough people to vote for Heather Stephenson?
No, because even that sentiment is not founded in reality. I've looked at the NDP platform and he has a clear idea of where he wants to go when it comes to crime. And I think that what he's proposing, I think that it shows opportunity for what he's trying to accomplish, and saying that oh, he's going to open the floodgates for crime. I think that's just another grasp to say that he doesn't have the abilities to do what needs to be done.
Right. So for both of you, the timing of this ad campaign, Saturday is Orange Shirt Day for children who survived and who didn't survive the residential schools. The NDP have several First Nation and Métis candidates. Is it a good idea to attack them this way at this time? And Nigan, will ask you first.
Well, I mean, what Carrie just said is absolutely the NDP has a plan. It isn't to make more police officers, though, or hire more police officers. It's to shore up mental health services. They're not looking at cutting the police, but what they're doing is keeping the existing police force, maybe strengthening it somewhat, but then particularly building what they call wraparound support, so housing, mental health facilities, and so on. And so what that tells you is that the attack on Wab Kinew and inferring that he's going to somehow open the floodgates is also that he's a criminal. And so a long time, all of those ads is endless reminders and trying to get the media to point out to the public around these ads. The reason that they're putting these ads out is so that all of us in the media then say, here's what the ads say. And they remind that he has a previous DUI and all these kinds of things, many things that he's been pardoned for. And the real question is Manitoba voters ready for someone to give a second chance to? Certainly if this is a non-Indigenous person, a Canadian male, for example, undoubtedly he would get second, third, fourth chances. And how many politicians, Rob Ford, you look in the United States, Donald Trump, all these people get second, third, 50,000 chances. Yep. And if you're an Indigenous person, you never get a second chance. And that's the real question is, are Manitoba voters ready for a person who deserves a second chance on Tuesday?
Yeah. And Carrie, do you have anything to say to that?
Just going off what Nigan said, as for Orange Shirt Day, I think this really just highlights where the party stands when it comes to Indigenous people, and I think it's just showing voters who they're voting for if they do vote for that party.
Yeah. All right, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us today, both of you, and have a great day.
You much, thanks.
It will indeed be an interesting election day in Manitoba. Another break now, but we'll tell you about an Indigenous Youth Forum happening in Ottawa when we come back. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Shelley Morin sent in this great shot of the setting sun as seen from Nipawin, Saskatchewan, regional park located about 4 hours due north of Regina. Beautiful area. Thanks for sharing, Shelley. If you have a photo to share, send it to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the East Coast, we're looking at St. John's at 16 tomorrow, Fredericton 21. Newfoundland Labrador, Happy Valley Goose Bay 16. In Quebec, Chibougamau 21 and Saint Jovite 24. In Ontario, North Bay and Peterborough and Toronto all 22. Northern Ontario, we're looking at Big Trout Lake 20 and Sioux Lookout 18. Northern Manitoba, Churchill 20 tomorrow, Puckatawagan 15. Southern Manitoba, Barons River and Princess Harbour 19, Winnipeg 21. Southern Saskatchewan, Yorkton 20, Regina 18, and Saskatoon also 18. Further north, Uranium City 7 and La Ronge 15. In northern Alberta, High Level 10, Fort McMurray 12. Heading south, Edmonton and Calgary 12, Medicine Hat 18. Southern BC, Kamloops 16 and Vancouver 15. In northern BC, Dease Lake and Fort Nelson 10, Smithers 14. Rock River -1 tomorrow, and Whitehorse partly cloudy and 7. In the Northwest Territories, Norman Wells 5, Fort Simpson 8. Further north, Tuktoyaktuk 2 and Inuvik 4. Cambridge Bay -1 and some snow tomorrow, and Baker Lake is 5. Resolute -3 tomorrow, and Igloolik 0. Thousands of youth from the Ottawa region heard from residential school survivors and knowledge keepers today at a youth-focused event. It was an opportunity to learn about Canada's history with a visit by Governor-General Mary Simon. Here's Annette Francis with that story.
Over 5,000 kids donning orange shirts packed the TD Place Arena in Ottawa, where they heard an honor song, followed by Juno Award winner Julie Black's version of O Canada.
Oh, Canada, our home on a native land.
They've come to learn about the impacts of the residential school system. It's the second year for the Gidduenimum, or We Are All Related event. Jennifer Wood of the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation says there's been a great response.
I believe that we had over 4 million viewers, and we had again over thousands of students attending from surrounding communities. So it's growing and growing, and you know, we want to build it as much as we can because it's time. It's a pivotal time in our history for survivors, in spite of everything that's happening with the discoveries and, you know, recognizing Orange Shirt Day and the reconciliation in general. I mean, Canada is listening, and we appreciate it as survivors.
Governor-General Mary Simon encouraged the youth to listen and learn.
It's up to you to say in one powerful voice, I will tell others what you tell me today. I will be shaped by what I hear. We will do better for each other. Today, let us build bridges of understanding, respect, healing, and reconciliation, because each of us must contribute to our collective journey of reconciliation in big and small ways.
It was also an opportunity to hear from residential school survivors.
First Nations people were here for thousands and thousands of years. The truth is, we lived here very, very well for thousands and thousands of years. We didn't need the newcomers to come and teach us how to live.
There were cultural dances as well. According to Wood, it's something survivors can take pride in. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
And that is all we have for you tonight. Thanks for joining us.